Jimmy Page, the lead singer here, lives in the home of Aleister Crowley, who we talked about last week, who is called the Beast in 666. And Jimmy Page actually owns London's largest occult bookstore, and that's the kind of guy you want singing and playing for you, right? I want you to listen to the backward message on that same song that you just heard, where it said, yes, there are two paths we can go by, but in the long run, there's always time to change the road you're on. In other words, going with Jesus, you can always change and go that way later, but there's other paths you can take. Now let's hear that backwards and see what it says. Here it is, backwards. I'm going to play that a little slower for you on the same cut here, and I want you to hear it. I believe it says, it's my sweet Satan, the one whose little path, what makes me sad, whose power is Satan. You listen, here it is a little slower. Now that sounds pretty blatant, doesn't it? I want to go on and say, here's another album cover from House of the Holy by Led Zeppelin, the same group. If you look close,
it doesn't take much imagination to see all these nude, helpless little children climbing up the hill, and they're going up to the sacrificial sacrifice to, well, who could they be sacrificed to? Let me show you the next slide. If you have any doubts, it shows the child being held up in sacrifice, and I believe this really speaks about child sacrifice to the devil. But let's see that next slide now, where it shows a child being held up at the sacrificial altar. Now, personally, I believe that Satan himself is laying in the hidden backward messages that are in many of these songs. Robert Plant, who wrote the lyrics for Stairway to Heaven, which you heard a moment ago, with Jimmy Page, said the following in Circus Magazine, 1975. Listen to his quote. Stairway gets the best reaction of any number we do. It was basically conceived on the spot, lyrically. In other words, it came spontaneously, very possibly motivated by a spiritual source. If they didn't just write that song in days and days of working, but they just sat down and wrote it straight through, and it's very possible that there was another spiritual source that was writing those words forward, because when they're played backwards, there's a very different message. It's actually worship to Satan. Oh, it's my sweet Satan. Well, this next slide will show a Druid priest holding a lantern with a hexagram star, or a six-sided star, on the inside. And this is actually right out of the Stairway to Heaven album. If we could draw back on that picture, you would see that this is part of the total inside cover of the Stairway to Heaven album. But this same priest, if you look at the next slide that I show you, is the hermit from the tarot card. In other words, the cards that we play tarot with have this same hermit with a six-sided hexagram in it. And the hexagram is, it's the evil occultic sign used in ceremonial rites to call demons forth. And the word hex, meaning to place a curse on someone, comes from this sign. And so you see, they use the hermit tarot card right in their album. Now, Satan, I believe, is preparing this generation for the appearance of someone. Could it be the Antichrist? The Jefferson Starship has an album out called Blows Against the Empire. I want to show you a picture of this group, the Jefferson Starship, in their album, Blows Against the Empire. And as we listen to it, I'm going to play the song for you, and it starts out, I've got a surprise for you, a child is coming. Let's play the first part of this album right now. I got a surprise for you, a child is coming. Now, I wonder who that child could be. It's interesting. They're laying a foundation here. As you play it forward, you hear, a child is coming. What child? Well, there's something the child's going to do, and the next part of the song says, everything's going to get better, it's going to get brighter, he's going to really put things together. Let's hear the next part of the song right now.
suppose that really it's saying a child is coming, and it says when the child comes, everything's going to get better, going to get brighter. Is it possible that if we played this backwards, we would find out who the child is? Is it possible that this could be preparing us subconsciously through backward masking to accept a child that is coming that is none other than the son of Satan? Let me play that for you backwards, and you tell me who the child is. Listen carefully.
Did you hear son of Satan over and over? Let me slow it down for you one more time and let you hear it again. This is a child is coming, slowed down and backwards. Here it is.
I believe if you listen very closely, you heard son of Satan. I believe most of the young people today would not accept that if it were blatantly put into the record that a child is coming, the son of Satan, to make everything better. But I believe when you backmask it into the song, they will accept it and receive it gladly because their subconscious mind does not know they're being programmed. Those will be the first people that will take the mark 666 on their forehead and hand when the Antichrist sets up his kingdom here on earth. Now, there's a very great sickness coming into the rock music today. I'm going to show you in a moment a slide of a group called Van Halen. Van Halen is a group, well, you could say that they're a group of guys that, well, four nice guys that just like to dress up like barbarians. This is the group. I'll be putting them up right now for you, this group called Van Halen. And I want to play a cut from their song, Women and Children First. It's actually out of the album, The Cradle Will Rock. Let's hear The Cradle Will Rock by Van Halen. And the song is, well, the album is Women and Children First, and the song is The Cradle Will Rock. Let's hear that now. Cradle will rock. We're seeing the young people today being rocked to sleep by a satanic plot. And I believe that's why I'm calling this message Rock-a-Bye-Bye Baby, because the children have got to wake up. Let me show you today some of the things that I believe prove that the music is evil. Scott Cohen summed up their harmless heathen pleasures this way in Circus Magazine, October 10th, 1978, in speaking about the group Van Halen. He said it's a group of barbarians who are sweeping around the world nonstop and have a few basic goals in mind, and when it's done, they're going to have a good old-fashioned barbarian party after each city is conquered. Then the group itself said this, and I quote, "And after it's over, we sack the village, we go looking for women and the children." Made a good title for their album, and I wonder what they're going to do with the women and children. Let's look at another picture of one of the lead singers, David Lee Roth, and here he's the teen sex symbol for boys and girls, very popular with the boys, too, as a sex symbol in leather pants with bare-chested and tied in chains. And in Us magazine, February 3rd, 1981, Roth explained, "We shot a session and the picture got such an intense reaction that we said, that's rock and roll. Anyway, it's always been one of my sexual fantasies to be tied up." That's sadomasochism for any of you that don't know what that means. An interviewer for Rolling Stone, September 4th, 1980, spent a few days with Van Halen and reported, I quote, "I've seen enough nude women to fuel an article about pornographic rock. They're just nice guys having some harmless fun, right? Wrong. Circus Magazine, July 31st, 1981, after finding some brown M&M candies in a plate of their candy, going against the clause in their contract. Part of their contract says there will be no brown M&Ms in their candy dish. Both the band and the crew trashed the dining room, the dressing room, and the restroom at the University of Southern California. The total damages approximately $12,000 and a ban on all rock concerts in that town. Yeah, they're just harmless little guys. I want to tell you something.